Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Wednesday, November 5th. We're broadcasting from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I myself, though, am joining you on the road, making my way back towards Florida, having been out of state on assignment, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the broadcast here today and share a little bit of my reporting trip with you. But just to catch you up to speed on where we are with the rocket you see in front of you, you're taking a look right now at United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket in the 551 configuration, meaning that this vehicle is being supported in part by 5 solid rocket boosters strapped around the Atlas booster itself. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast here today. Our photographers, once again, back up at their posts, getting ready to support coverage and tracking of this Atlas V rocket as it makes its ascent, carrying the ViaSat-3 F2 vehicle to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. You can find them at their handles here on X. Adam is at ABurnNYC. Michael is at MD Kane Jr. John is at John Pisani Photo. And be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. We're also on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook if you yourself are not on X. For those of you who are joining us for the first time tonight, welcome in. If this is your second live stream with us this evening, welcome back. Of course, we just wrapped up, seems like in the blink of an eye, the launch of SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket from Space Launch Complex 40 here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Here's an image of that liftoff as captured by our Adam Bernstein from here at the press site. So far, things are going well with that mission, which is just about 57.5 minutes post liftoff. Deployment of the Starlink satellites on board is expected at about T plus 1 hour and 5 minutes post liftoff. We should get confirmation from SpaceX a little bit after deployment, confirming that they did have a nominal jettison of those Starlink satellites. 29 in total were, or still currently are on board that Falcon 9 rocket. Turning our attention now fully to the ULA Atlas V rocket. We're just under 55 minutes away from liftoff of this launch vehicle in its most powerful configuration. At liftoff, this rocket will depart Florida Space Coast under the support of 2.7 million pounds or 12 meganewtons of thrust from those LOX kerosene, or from the LOX kerosene RD-180 main engine, as well as the 5 solids from Northrop Grumman. Most recent updates from ULA, the Centaur upper stage liquid hydrogen tank is now just wrapped up in the last little bit here. That was the last big milestone for fueling. So now at this point, the Atlas V has reached flight levels in its tanking process, weighing about 1.29 million pounds or 587,000 kilograms. There's still one more planned hold in this count to make sure that everything is ready to sync up the L- clock with the T- clock. The final planned hold that I mentioned, the second of two, is going to happen when the T minus clock hits 4 minutes. Then the T minus clock will hold at that point for 30 minutes nominally. If ULA feels like they need to further extend the hold, they do have some additional time to do that. The window today lasts between 10:24 and 11:08 p.m. Eastern, or 03:24 to 04:08 UTC on November 6th. Time now, L minus 50 minutes and counting. As we're getting ready to see this Atlas V rocket take off, want to thank our moderators for joining us back once again for another stream. Thanks to Astro Joe and Rick Donner. Not seeing Jeff Hansen at the moment, but if he is still with us, appreciate the three of you for helping us out tonight one more time. Also want to thank our wonderful channel member community for your ongoing support of what we do here at Spaceflight Now, helping to make these live launch opportunities possible. So thanks to folks like Bill in Lauderdale, Janine DC, Rich Plain, Richard W., Joni, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. I want to thank Astro Joe, marking 40 months with us as a member at the pad leader level. Saying on sale now, 2 for 1 tonight only. A nod to our double header launch with one in the bank and one now concluding tanking, getting ready to take flight here in just about 48.5 minutes. Want to welcome a new channel member, Debbie Patterson, joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Welcome aboard, Debbie. We're glad to have you with us. And a thanks to Bill in Lauderdale for a $5 super chat. Says, let's get the night started for the mods. Thanks for all you do. And thanks to the 2,000 plus of you who are watching along with us live at this point in the count. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into our live launch coverage tonight. As we're awaiting the launch of ULA's Atlas 5 rocket, fully fueled, 46 minutes, 10 seconds away from taking flight. Let's take a look at this visibility graphic provided by ULA to give you a sense of the upcoming post liftoff milestones and how far away the rocket will be from the Space Coast as it makes its flight due east from Slick 41. This will give folks a good overview of about how far the visibility should be, as well as, again, what those milestones are from liftoff through really one of the last big milestones that we should be seeing is MES-1 from onshore. Clear skies, though, here at the Space Coast, so should be some pretty nice views for this launch, as we just saw with the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket as well. It has certainly been a busy 24 hours for orbital space flight. Of course, yesterday there was the Ariane 6 launch of the Sentinel-1D spacecraft from down at Europe Spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana. That was followed up earlier today by a launch from down in Mahia, New Zealand, an Electron rocket with the Nation God Navigates mission, a synthetic aperture radar satellite that flew on behalf of IQPS. Of course, we just saw the Starlink 6-81 mission take off from Pad 40 here on the Space Coast, and we're just now about 43 and a half minutes away from seeing this Atlas 5 take flight as well. Time now L minus 40 minutes, 44 seconds and counting. At the beginning of our broadcast here tonight, I mentioned that while, of course, my colleagues are very much around Cape Canaveral getting ready to support tracking views of the Atlas V rocket, and we're in place for the the reason that I am unfortunately not there with my colleagues at Spaceflight now to see this launch in person is I'm actually heading back from Alabama, from the northern end of the state, having had the opportunity to take a tour inside ULA's Decatur factory where they manufactured the Atlas V rocket and, of course, have multiple Vulcan vehicles in flow. Looking forward to sharing a lot more from that reporting trip. Probably next week is when I think we'll have something more robust coming out from that. But want to bring in part of our conversation with ULA President and CEO Tory Bruno, as we had the opportunity to speak with him alongside one of the local news stations there, WHNT, and reporter Liz Hurley, whose voice you'll hear in part of this clip. But here this first part of our conversation, you'll hear Tory responding to my question about how the ongoing federal shutdown has impacted ULA's operations there in Decatur. And then that'll pivot to a conversation about the ViaSat-3 F2 satellite. So here's part of our conversation inside the rocket factory in Decatur, Alabama, with ULA's Tory Bruno.
We've actually been doing really well, and the government has been working very hard to insulate us from those kinds of effects. The closest thing to an impact we experienced recently was our current launch for another commercial customer, ViaSat, which is a GEO kind of platform for telecommunications. We needed one more license from the FCC to be able to fly here Wednesday night, and the government personnel worked with us. We did our application, we got our approvals. We had to pay $75 for a licensing fee, and the system is only online, and it wasn't up because it was unessential. So we scrambled around for a couple of days, but the government did a great job taking care of us. They figured out a way we could pay, and the way is cleared.
So ViaSat, really important satellite for a lot of people.
Yes, oh yes, absolutely.
This launch for you is important?
It is. All our launches are important because they're important to our customers, makes that important to us. And the way to think about telecommunications for a company like ViaSat, where this particular bird is in GEO, is it's not only about the broadband and LEO. LEO broadband is great for two-way surfing of the internet, where you need that what we call low latency, where the signal to the satellite and back is a very short span of time, and that happens because it's in LEO. When we get out to GEO, it's much, much longer, 22,000 miles. It's like 10 times that latency communication time, but not everything you want to do on the internet is two-way surfing. When you start your movie on Netflix and it took an extra 200 milliseconds to begin streaming, you're not going to notice. And so that is a really important application for those types of telecommunication
If
satellites.
I'm on an airline, I want it to work, and that's what ViaSat will do, right?
ViaSat will give you that global coverage. They're going to give you that reliability. They're going to handle a lot of what we call backhaul applications, where data is moved around the globe behind your surfing experience. So those constellations will still want to be in low Earth orbit medium Earth orbit, and all the way up to the geo belt in that sort of blended architecture.
And again, that was ULA President and CEO Tory Bruno. Want to make one quick correction to something I said before we rolled that clip. Liz Hurley is with WAFF, not WHNT. So apologies for that. Currently L minus 35 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Should be coming up to the start of the plan hold here in the next minute. And just passing the L minus 34 minute point in the count, ULA is entered into the planned hold at T minus 4 minutes. Time now, L minus 29 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting. As the count progresses, ULA is working a valve issue by the sound of it, and for the time being are holding off on switching the ViaSat spacecraft to internal power. We'll continue to monitor and let you know about any further updates at this point in time. But that is the latest on progress towards liftoff. Time now currently L minus 26 minutes, 46 seconds, and counting. Giving you a sense of what the spacecraft looks like that is currently on board the Atlas 5 551 rocket. Here's a look at the ViaSat-3 spacecraft inside a Boeing clean room. A few images here of the encapsulation process. This is the vehicle as it was being brought over to meet the payload fairings, which you can see on the other side of that doorway. This is inside Astrotech Space Operations in Titusville, not too far away from the Cape. And a couple more photos of the encapsulation process and some humans to give you a sense of scale with, of course, the roughly 6-ton spacecraft standing inside those payload fairings, which are now, of course, at the top of the Atlas rocket stack, ready and awaiting a liftoff here. Opening of the window is what the clock is counting down to right now. L minus 25 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting to the opening of tonight's window. Window lasts until 11:08 p.m. Eastern. If ULA needs to use a little bit more of their opportunity. With just about 24 minutes remaining on the clock, gave you a visual of what the actual spacecraft looks like inside a couple of different clean rooms. Here's an animation courtesy of Viasat of what the vehicle looks like on orbit as it begins to deploy its solar panels and antenna, prepare for operational checkouts, which will last a few months at least, with the vehicle set to enter into operational service in early 2026. Again, this animation and these factoids provided by folks at Viasat. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, it was manufactured by Boeing, will be operated by Viasat in geostationary Earth orbit. This particular spacecraft set to operate in the 79 degrees west longitude position. And the vehicle itself was built on Boeing's 702 MP Plus satellite bus platform. Taking a peek back at our live chat with just under 22 minutes to go. Want to thank Fred Lee MH for a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Fred. Says F2, you got this. Mods, thank you for your coverage. Stay safe. That coming in at about L minus 42 minutes by the look of it. Want to welcome a new chill member, Martha E. Morgado, joining us with membership at the Pad Leader level. Welcome aboard, Martha. We're glad to have you with us. Also want to thank channel member Alicia Delegati for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Certainly appreciate that generosity, Alicia. And to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Alicia in the live chat. Time now L minus 16 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. ULA is now transferring the ViaSat-3 F2 spacecraft to internal power. L minus 16 minutes and counting. In about 12 minutes, the planned hold should wrap up for this countdown, and ULA will transfer into their terminal count, assuming that they are ready to release the hold at that point. They will conduct a final go, no go poll before they go ahead and reach that point, though.
Underway, and we will keep you posted. You know,
So the audio from the ULA commentators was very brief there. Not sure if it went out on our broadcast in full or not, but they are working an anomaly, as was just briefly mentioned. That's in relation to presumably the valve issue that I mentioned earlier in the broadcast. The spacecraft has switched to internal power, which they had been waiting on for the last about 10 or so minutes. We'll, of course, bring you additional updates as we have more to provide to you about the ongoing anomaly that teams hope to resolve in time to allow for the launch to move forward tonight. Again, the hold is scheduled to lift if they are ready to lift the hold once the clock reaches L minus 4 minutes. That's when the clock would sync with the T minus time, assuming liftoff is still targeting the opening of the window tonight at 10:24 p.m. Eastern, 0324 UTC. The window does extend out, though, to 11:08 p.m. Eastern, 0408 UTC. You're seeing some live pictures. Sorry to stop abruptly in the middle of my sentence, just listening in for updates as we're hearing them live. So, want to make sure we pass along the most relevant information to you all as we continue on through the countdown. So, if you do hear me stop like that abruptly, just listening into updates from Mission Control from ULA. Here's a look at the forecast for today's launch. As we cruise into the final several minutes before the opening of the window, we're also coming up to the readiness pole to enter into terminal count.
The 30-minute.
This is a look inside the ASOC, the Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center. Let's listen into the final readiness poll, about to begin here in just about 5 seconds. Poll has not begun. Usually starts at L minus 7 minutes on the dot. Standing by. The fact that the poll has not yet begun might indicate that they need to progress further into their window tonight. Again, the final readiness poll is typically conducted beginning at L minus 7 minutes. So far, that poll has
This
not
is Atlas
started.
Mission Control at L minus 5 minutes and 23 seconds. We are currently not hearing a poll because the team is working an issue. Thankfully, our launch window tonight extends 44 minutes, and we will keep on listening in for updates.
As you just heard, the poll has not begun. We're standing by for further. Tonight's launch window opens up at 10:24 p.m. Eastern and lasts until 11:08 p.m. Eastern. So had they conducted the readiness poll at their earliest opportunity just a few minutes ago now, teams would be progressing towards syncing the L minus clock and the T minus clock in just about 10 seconds. Given that the poll has not happened, though, this will not occur, and ULA pushing further into the window. New T0 will be forthcoming if they're able to clear the anomaly. If you're just now joining us, ULA has extended the planned 30-minute hold, which was set to lift at T minus 4, or set to lift at L minus 4 minutes when it synced with the T minus clock. That would signify a liftoff at the opening of the window. You're looking at an animation now of the ViaSat-3 F2 spacecraft. New T0 has not been announced yet. You're standing by for the start of the readiness poll, which would indicate that ULA is in good shape to progress towards the final terminal count. The window tonight does extend out to 11:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 04:08 UTC. We'll, of course, provide you updates as we learn more. We're standing by to learn more ourselves at this point in the count. This video of the transport of the ViaSat-3 F2 spacecraft from Boeing facilities in California on a transport cargo plane out to Cape Canaveral. Taking a look at our live chat here. When the rocket is able to launch, it will fly due east from Florida's Space Coast. This is a mission sending the ViaSat-3 F2 or Flight 2 vehicle out to a geosynchronous transfer orbit. Again, for those just joining us, we are still in what began as a planned hold, now an extended hold for ULAs. They continue to work an anomaly we believe is connected to a valve issue. The spacecraft was switched to internal power before we got to the point where ULA was set to conduct a readiness poll. We saw a little bit inside the ASOC, the Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center there at the Cape. But the poll has not begun. Still standing by, waiting for that moment, since the readiness poll is typically conducted at L minus 7 minutes before liftoff, with the L minus and the T minus clocks syncing up 3 minutes after that point. ULA still has margin in its window tonight, which again extends out to 11:08 p.m. Eastern. So they still have margin to play with. We're standing by awaiting further updates from the launch team. And of course, as we learn more, we'll pass any relevant information on to you. Latest update from ULA, and I'll quote them here, saying, quote, engineers at Cape Canaveral and ULA's design center in Denver are working together to develop options to potentially solve this issue for launch tonight. Our launch opportunity remains available through 11:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 04:08 UTC. Local time now, 10:32 p.m. Eastern. Still in the extended hold from ULA. Further details of the anomaly being worked have not been provided in the last couple of updates, so we're standing by for additional words. On a meteorological front, ULA notes that the upper level winds have been verified as acceptable for the entire launch window. So that's some good news as teams continue to work through what we believed to be a valve issue. One thing worth noting about this mission tonight with the launch on tap for ViaSat, this is said to be the final non-Amazon, non-government Atlas V rocket that will be launched in the program's history. The remaining Atlas V rockets are 6 that have been set aside to support the Boeing Starliner spacecraft. And there's also 5 more Atlas V rockets that have been set aside for Amazon and its Project Kuiper constellation. Of course, 3 launches have already been completed by previous Atlas V rockets for the Amazon constellation. Those are 3 batches of production satellites, and then the flight of the 2 proto-flight satellites, the demonstrator Kuiper vehicles. Local time now 10:39 Eastern. Got less than half an hour remaining in the window for ULA tonight. That extends out to 11:08 p.m. Eastern. Still no update at this point on the status of the anomaly being worked. ULA in their latest update just noting that they continue to hold the count at T-minus 4 minutes as the anomaly continues to be worked.
Control booster locks. Roger.
Time now 10:44 p.m. Eastern. As the time in ULA's window continues to tick by. Looking ahead at what is still on the horizon for ULA. Back in, let's see, this was the tail end of September, the GPS-3 space vehicle number 9 left Lockheed Martin's facilities in Denver, making their way out here to Florida to begin processing for that next GPS spacecraft after a couple of others were launched earlier this year. Following the launch of the ViaSat-3 F2 spacecraft, it's unclear what will be exactly the next mission flying for ULA, whether they're going to launch another batch of Kuiper satellites on another Atlas V rocket and allow the VIF to stay in its current configuration, or if they may pivot to a Vulcan setup in the vertical integration facility in support of this GPS spacecraft. The next previously announced national security mission said to be the USSF-87 flight, but the manifest may have changed a little bit on that. We'll have to wait and see how things shake out for these last 2 months of 2025 for ULA. Time now 10:48 p.m. Eastern, 03:48 UTC, 20 minutes remaining on the clock, or remaining in the window, I should say. Still no update at this point in the count, though, as far as specifics on the anomaly being worked by ULA, as far as things that are being tried or potential T0 liftoff time that they are currently targeting, whether that's the tail end of the window or if they've got a path to a little bit earlier in the window. We're still standing by and hoping to learn some of those details. Of course, we will pass them along to you as we learn them.
the Aegis load. Would you like me to go ahead and load that?
Negative.
Copy.
LC, LD, net 1.
LC.
Yes, sir. We are declaring a scrub for today's operations. Please configure for 24-hour recycle.
Roger.
And as you just heard, ULA has officially scrubbed tonight's launch opportunity for the ViaSat-3 F2 spacecraft, targeting a 24-hour recycle with a launch now looking at Thursday, November 6th. Even with the update for the scrub, no additional information at this point in time on the anomaly itself, unfortunately, to share with you.
Go. At this time, we can go ahead and take the spacecraft back to external power.
Roger.
Operation 90. Step 20. Terminate option 910 and reset 910 flags.
Roger.
The next available opportunity for ULA is tomorrow. The window tomorrow opens up, we just heard, at 10:16 p.m. Eastern, 03:16 UTC for those around the world. Of course, we will have live launch coverage beginning an hour prior to the planned liftoff of that mission, so beginning at 9:16 Eastern, 02:16 UTC for our friends around the world. So we certainly hope you take the time to join us back again when ULA will try once more to launch its Atlas V rocket from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Given that they are scrubbed for tonight, though, we're going to wrap up our broadcast. Thanks to our friends Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions, Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images for being on standby to support what would have been a doubleheader from the Space Coast tonight. Instead, we are looking for a solo flight from here at the Cape now tomorrow evening. Also, big thanks to our photographers for being at the ready in support of this launch opportunity. You can find them at their handles here on X to give them a follow. Adam is at ABurnNYC, John at John Pisani Photo, and Michael at MD Kane Jr. And be sure to follow Spaceflight now if you're not already on our social platforms. And hit that subscribe button here on X if you haven't already done so. Make sure you've got that bell icon turned on and you've got notifications on as well so that you'll be alerted when we start our live launch coverage. Thanks to our moderators for being on standby for this opportunity. Thanks to Astro Joe, to Rick Donner as well. And thanks to one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for being in the chat to help answer folks' questions during this coverage. The next launch that we'll have on tap for the channel, though, is actually coming a bit before the second launch attempt for this Atlas V rocket. We're looking at a flight of another batch of SpaceX Starlink satellites. The Starlink 11-14 mission set to take off with a window that opens just before 1 p.m. Pacific, a little before 2100 UTC. So we'll have live coverage of that mission beginning 30 minutes prior to liftoff, and then we'll pivot tomorrow night to what will hopefully be the launch of ViaSat-3 F2. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.